my dad was a smoker, heavy drinker in the 50s and 60s. And then he wanted to advance in rank in the Navy. He went into the Navy, I guess, somewhere around 55, 56, because he got out of the Navy around 75, 76, somewhere around there. And so he wanted to advance in rank. And there was this and have it's too long to go into right here. But basically, his boss got what's called a swinging bust. Dad had done something wrong. And so there was a reprimand, a severe reprimand, that if it was filed with the proper authorities would mean Dad would never get high rank. He would probably, I think at the time he was around an E3 or E4 or something like that. You go from E1 to E8, those are your ranks, right? He was somewhere in the middle. He was never going to get another good promotion. And probably would just have to leave the service after about 10 years if this reprimand went into the official record. So Dad did something wrong, and so his boss told him, look, man, if I see you take another drink, if I smell liquor on your breath, if you're drunk, even when you're off duty, this bust is going in the official record. Obviously, if you do something wrong or something else gets brought to my attention, one of your superiors reports to me that you did such and such, and anything wrong, a single thing wrong, you're getting written up for that, and this reprimand will go in the official record. It's called a swinging bust. Apparently, it's like, we're going to bust your ass, but we're swinging our fist, but the fist is not connected to your face yet. I assume is what it means. So at that point, he stopped drinking. This is around 63, somewhere around there. So at that point, he says, okay, I'm done. I'm not drinking anymore. And he didn't drink for 7 years. And one time, about 6 months later, Dad had done something really good. And he actually did a couple of inventions, which helped. He was gunfire support. So he was the one who would calculate the math to when a heavy cruiser fires around 20 miles away, that it lands in the right place. And so he invented some device that fucking allowed them to do that better. And so the Navy gave him a check for $1,000 and they gave him an official commendation. Of course, they keep the patent to it, and who knows how much money they made off this, right? But that's what he got. $1,000 in around 64 ain't bad, right? And so he's getting this commendation, and nothing bad had happened in 6 months, and Dad he had not taken a single drink in 6 months and all this shit, right? And so he's in this crowd of about 40 people, some officers, some of his peers, some of his subordinates, and they're all congratulating him. And this officer who had this conversation with Dad 6 months ago made eye contact with Dad and went like this. Like he was tearing up a piece of paper, which means I guess when he went back to the office that night, he destroyed that reprimand. But that was Dad's wake-up call, because he wanted to be a career Navy person so that he could get that 20-year pension, right? At the time, he was keeping his options open. Maybe he wanted to do 30 years. He'd have to become an officer if he wanted to do 30 years. But he was keeping his options. He wanted these promotions. And it turned out he became the fastest ever. He became the youngest Master Chief Petty Officer in naval history at the time. So people have surpassed him since then. But at the time, he was the youngest person ever promoted up to E8, which is the highest you can do as an enlisted man. Master Chief Petty Officer. Youngest ever do it. And so, none of that would have been possible if he kept drinking. And then he met my mother. You talk about how I met your mother. Mom was a drinker. She got him back into drinking. He would stop. She didn't want a boyfriend or eventually a husband who didn't drink, because she drank and she couldn't stop drinking. She drank and she smoked, and she wanted somebody who drank and smoked. And so she got him drinking again. He made his own choice. I'm not blaming Mom. I'm just saying this is what happened, right? He was off the sauce for 7 years. He met Mom. He started drinking again. He didn't like himself when he was drunk, but he did it. 7 years later, they get divorced. 6 or 7. I can't remember if they divorced in 76 or 77. I'm not sure. I was way too young to know at the time. I never knew Dad when he was drunk. But when he was drunk, he was the worst version of himself. Now, he was never physically abusive. He never hit anybody. But he screamed. He was still a screamer even after he stopped drinking. He was a screamer. He could be hilarious. He was funny when he was cussing you out. As a kid, he would scream at us, and we would straighten up. Even if he was somebody who hit, it was never necessary. We did what he said when he started screaming. But he wasn't physically abusive. So I don't really know what the issue was with him drinking. What specifically was it about him? Because I never knew him as a drunk. I don't know what specifically about him it was. Probably because he was a little bit arrogant. I'm a little bit arrogant. I get it from him. So maybe when he drank, he was more arrogant. I think it's possible because I make jokes at the expense of others, just jokes, very friendly. Ball busting we call it. Like if you watch The Sopranos, that some people take that shit personally sometimes, but it's just ball busting. So I wonder if he got drunk. I wonder if maybe that turned way more vicious than it should be. Like it stopped being funny and started just being mean. Maybe that's the way he was when he was drunk. Maybe he screamed more. I do remember. I have very, very vague memories. I was very young. I was in the crib of them screaming at each other. So maybe when they got drunk, they scream at each other. So maybe, but he didn't like himself when he was drunk. So he stopped drinking in either 76, 7, whenever she left him. He stopped drinking and never took another drink for the rest of his life. He lived until 2018. So we're talking about 42 years. He went 42 years without drinking or smoking. And he always said he was a recovering alcoholic. He wasn't a cured alcoholic. He said, I'm not drinking today. I may drink tomorrow. I don't know. But I'm not drinking today. And he would say sometimes, like, if I died in a car accident or something, if I just happened to die, he was going to go buy himself some Johnny Walker Blue and just, have a blowout and just go ahead and end it all. Because I was his caretaker anyway. I don't know who would have taken care of him at that point. But the point of all this, there's a point to all this. I'm not just reminiscing for whatever, to waste your time. There's a point to all this. The point is, for 42 years, a bunch of people came into Dad's life, met him, some long-term friendships. He made a friend of about 35 years who never knew him as a drunk. None of these people knew him as a drunk. I attended his retirement party, and there was 40 to 50 people, and they just couldn't wait to congratulate him. And they were all so happy, and everybody loved him. He was a very gregarious person, very social person. Everybody loved him. I would attend his Navy reunions, and everybody loved him. These are two people from two time periods when he didn't drink. They fucking loved him. And so, they loved sober Dad. They didn't know him as drunk Dad. I didn't know him as drunk Dad. I loved him as sober Dad. He had his flaws, and we all have our flaws, but there was nothing that would be like, man, I can't live with this. But nobody from his life of back when he was drinking stayed in his life. They were done with him. They were fucking done. So and I'll tell you one more story real quick. There was this woman he was dating before he met my mom, back when he was drinking. And she was really nice. She had 2 kids, and he got along great with him, and there was a chance he was going to marry her. He was getting really close to her. And one time, he was going to pick her up, and they were going to have an anniversary dinner. I think it was like their 2-year anniversary dinner. And he was even thinking maybe he'd pop the question at this thing, and so they were getting really serious. It was a very special dinner. He had reservation at a really expensive steak place. And so he was going to pick her up at 7 o'clock. So she gets a babysitter for her kids. And she had bought a new dress. And she had went to a special hairdresser, around 5. She leaves the appointment at 5 o'clock. So it's 2 hours before he's going to pick her up. So she leaves the hairdresser. And she's got this very nice dress that she had bought, and she puts on all this makeup. The babysitter's there, and she's, 7 o'clock, she's waiting for him. He had stopped at a bar to celebrate before picking her up. 6:30, he goes to this bar. He stumbles out of that bar when they fucking close at 2:30. Some bitch stayed in the bar till 2:30. And then what's he do? Drives over to her fucking house. Knocks on her door. He's knocking on the door for 5 or 10 minutes until she finally comes to the fucking door. Wakes up everybody. Wakes up the kids, of course, all shit. She answers the door, and she's in her bathrobe. Her hair still looks kind of nice and everything. He can see remnants of her makeup where she had been crying, clearly. She had cried, and there was, smears of mascara all over her face and shit. And, supposed to pick him up at 7 o'clock. Gets there probably at 3:30 in the morning. Wakes her ass up at 3:30 in the morning. She'd probably just gone to sleep a couple hours and cried herself to sleep. He's fucking knocking on the door, waking her ass up. And she told him she never wanted to see him again. And clearly there's more to it. There's other ways he'd let her down, clearly, in drinking, and, who knows what else had happened. That's the story he told me, though. That was the story of their breakup. That was the other one. I would never have existed if he had stayed with her. Because I wasn't going to be born to her. I was going to be born to my mother or not at all, right? So I would have never existed. So it's a good thing for me. But he broke her heart, and he let her down, and probably let her down a lot, and she never wanted to see him again. I think she would have enjoyed the person he was after he got sober, but she never found out. He never had contact with her again. And so my point is, any of these addicts, junkies, whatever, alcoholics, addicts, junkies, whatever word you want to use. They have their people in their life before they get sober, and then they have the people in their life after they get sober. And very few times you see crossover there. Every now and then you'll see family members who cross over. Yeah, a family member actually sticks with them. Most of the time they've been disappointed so many fucking times that they're done. They wash their hands of it. They're fucking done. They never want to see you again. Happened with Dad. Happened with Bojack. He had let Diane down too many times. He had disappointed too many times. She wanted nothing more to do with it. And that's how I read the last scene. It's pretty clearly what they were going for there. But, so my point here is that Dad, there were people in his life that probably believed he would never stay sober. Because he was sober for 7 years. And he went right back into the shit. There were people who believed he'd never stay sober. He stayed sober for 42 years until he died. But there are people who didn't believe him and would never give him another chance. They would never believe it. That's why I think a lot of these people in the pre-sober life don't stay with you once you get sober. Because they've seen it too many times. You've been sober before. Maybe the last time you get sober, you stay sober for the rest of your life. Great, But they don't believe it. Because tomorrow you're going to show up at their house drunk. They're just not going to give you another chance. They've given you too many chances. You've broken their heart too many times. You've let them down too many times. You've disappointed too many times. They don't have another chance in them. And I think that that's a good thing. I think we should reach a limit with people. But I do think that people who are on a path of sobriety should bring new people into their life. The old people are always getting in the back of their mind going to think, well, you're probably just, get drunk tomorrow. The person on the path of sobriety does not need that kind of pressure. They don't need it. They don't need the pressure. Damn, man. You suck. You're probably just going to disappoint me tomorrow. I can't trust you. You can't watch my kids. What if you show up drunk? I can't trust you to watch my kids for a weekend. The new person that comes in their life probably would trust them to watch the kids for a weekend. So that's why I think these people, they need to bring new people in their life who have chances left to give them. That's what you need, because the old people they don't have any more chances. Which finally brings us to this show. I believe not only Diane, but I believe me and you and everybody else who watched this show, the fans of this show, are the people in his old life. Bojack's old life that he has to leave behind once he gets on his path of true sobriety. We're the people in my dad's old life who will never see him as a sober person for 42 years. We're not going to be there for that journey because we have no more chances to give. I've never trusted Bojack again. I believe Bojack will get drunk tomorrow and fuck it all up and ruin somebody else's life tomorrow. Just because we don't see it happen, I still believe it will happen. Because nothing we've seen over the course of 6 seasons has given me a reason to believe anything else. Just like nothing that happened in Dad's first 37 years of life would give anybody in his life a reason to believe that he would be sober for 42 years. Nobody could have called that. Nobody would believe it. And nor should they. He hadn't given them any reason during the first 37 years of his life to believe anything other than he was going to fuck up again. He was going to meet some new woman, she would get him drunk again. The irony is, he actually did date a woman who drank. Several years after Mom left him, he dated a woman who drank. And he would go to the bar and he would just drink soda. He would not drink, he was fine. He had made up his mind he was never going to drink again, and he didn't. He never went to AA, none of that shit. It was just willpower. But there was no reason for anybody in his previous life to believe that. Just as there was no reason for us to believe Bojack will stay sober. But there is another TV audience out there for the new show. We'll call it Bojack Soberman. And the show of Bojack Soberman, that new audience will give him new chances. We wouldn't. If there had been season 7, I wouldn't be emotionally invested. I wasn't emotionally invested in the back half of the season. Once I found out about Sarah Lynn, that was it. We all have our... That was the rock. You have to hit rock bottom. For me, that was the rock bottom. For other people, it would have been something else. But at one point or another, we all hit rock bottom with Bojack. We don't care about him emotionally. We're not invested. We don't believe he'll ever change. We don't believe he'll ever stay sober. He's always going to fuck things up. We're not going to give him another chance. So season 7 would be disastrous because we just don't give a shit. This new audience, for Bojack Soberman, they're going to give him a new chance because they didn't know him as the old Bojack. They didn't see Bojack Horseman. They only see this new person who's on a path to sobriety. Now, he's mentioned, here's the things I did, but it doesn't emotionally resonate because they weren't there to see it in person. I wasn't there to see Dad break this woman's heart in person. I would probably feel different about it if I was there. I heard the story. I heard many other stories about when he was drunk. But I never heard that, I never saw it with my own 2 eyes. I was too young. Just like this Bojack Soberman, that audience that is completely separate from us, they'll give him plenty of chance. They'll be emotionally invested. There'll be an episode in season 2 of Bojack Silverman where he's down, he's feeling really bad about himself. Something reminds him of Sarah Lynn, which we've only heard about. We never met her, so we don't feel too bad about what he did to her. And he sits there and he buys a bottle of liquor and he comes home and the audience is all invested, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? We wouldn't be invested. We'd be like, yeah, whatever. He's going to drink it. Who gives a shit? You know, they're on the edge of their seat. What's going to happen? Is he going to defeat this? And he grabs the lid and he opens up the fucking lid. He's about to bring it to his mouth and instead he pours it down the sink and the audience cheers and they're all happy. Meanwhile, we're thinking, well, he'll just buy one tomorrow and he'll drink it tomorrow. We're not emotionally invested because we watched BoJack Horseman. We didn't watch BoJack Silverman. I wouldn't mind seeing BoJack Silverman. I think it would be a nice show, an interesting show, but I wouldn't be emotionally invested. Like I said, it'd be disastrous. I wouldn't enjoy it too much. This other audience who never watched BoJack Horseman, they're going to really enjoy that show. It'll be fine. It'll probably run 42 seasons. He'll never take another drink. He'll have some close calls. He'll help a lot of people. You know, and the audience will be there for every second of it, and they'll be cheering him on. They'll be emotionally invested. But he left us behind. He left this audience behind because we're done with it. Just like the people in a drunk or high person's life. They can't be there for the next stage of the journey because they just don't believe anymore. So I really think that is how I choose to look at the show. I was originally saying I would be disappointed if he didn't die because as long as he dies, we know he's not going to fuck anything else up. If he lives, we know he's going to fuck it up. I still believe he's going to fuck it up, personally. But I'm just telling you, the way this ended, it ended as if he's leaving us behind. Those of us who, just like he left Diane behind, like that last conversation. We're like Diane. This is what got me on this train of thought in the first place. She's not going to be there. She's not going to see the next journey of his life. Now he's quasi-famous, so maybe she'll see a couple news stories here and there. He's doing charity work. He's building Habitat for the Homeless or whatever. Habitat for Humanity, I guess it's called, whatever. Or he's with the Peace Corps, or whatever it is he's doing. Pulling children out of a school fire. Who knows? She might see a news story here and there, but she's not going to give a shit either way, right? So, just like the rest of us, we're all being left behind. So I do think that's the perfect ending for the show. Personally, I would have killed him off, but I think they made the right choice. You know, he's going to go on his next journey. He's either going to fail or not. Maybe he'll OD tomorrow. We don't know. We're not going to be there for it. But he has a chance. It depends. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? You know. So I do think that this is one of the best series I've ever seen. I was going to knock it a bunch because they didn't have the balls to kill him off. But I kind of like this. Now that I've had a way to frame it in my own mind in a way that I can understand. Because, you know, Dad didn't stay sober 42 years to prove people wrong. Bojack isn't going to, if he stays sober, it's not going to be to prove us wrong. You have to do it for yourself because you want to be a different person. You're tired of feeling like shit because you hurt other people. You have to do it for yourself. You can't do it for everybody. You can't try to prove people wrong. You can't live your life that way. It never works. They're never going to give you the satisfaction to be like, you know what? I was right and you were wrong. They'll never give you that satisfaction. So where would I rank this? I will say, I don't think I'd say it's a perfect show, and it is. It's perfectly written, perfectly conceived. It was this man's vision, Raphael's vision. And I believe he executed. One of the things I really respect about Breaking Bad is the guy had a vision, start to finish. You can see a clear story arc, start to finish, for multiple characters. That's what we had here. We had a very strong story arc here. He went through a lot of things. You know, somebody mentioned that you never see Wanda calling him again. Like, she's done with him. Like, a lot of people are done with him. Just like, you know, Prince Caroline is not going to represent him ever again. Now, we'll see. Like, again, she's another one. She's like a junkie in her own way in that she had made that choice before. And then he got big and a bunch of people wanted to be in a movie. And then, of course, she's like, hey, I need to get on that. I need that for my business. So she did it. What if he does have a Robert Downey Jr. type comeback, right? There's a couple of celebrities who've, like, killed people with their crazy driving. A couple of actresses. I can't remember their names. But there's, like, at least 2 actors I know of who have literally killed people with crazy driving. One of them drunk. The other one was just impatient trying to get around a car or something and hit a fucking pedestrian and killed him. And they still get work. So it could totally happen. So I can see her falling off the wagon. So I don't trust her either, to be honest with you. But right now she's presenting the front that like she'll never represent him again. So this is a perfectly constructed show. I think they did everything they wanted to do. They had some jokes. They really blended the tone very nicely. Had a lot of the meta jokes. They had a lot of social satire. They were able to comment on a bunch of different things. They did a lot with this show. A lot with this show. I'm super impressed by it. I will say, since I just categorically disagree with one of their choices, I can't put it in my top 10. That's just a personal preference. I'm not saying it's not a top. I think it is a top 10 show. I just categorically disagree with the choice to not tell us about Sarah Lynn. To not tell us that he murdered her. You know, manslaughter, whatever you want to call it. What he did, there was a chance he could have helped save her. You know what I'm saying? They withheld that information from us. They withheld that information from us for 3 full seasons. And then dropped it on us right before the end of the series. And I just categorically disagree with it. I think it was a mistake. For other people, maybe it's a perfect choice. People have even been in my comments. Some of the patrons have already seen the video. I talked about that. And they're already pushing back on that idea. And that's fine. That's why this is personal preference. So I would never argue with somebody who wants to put this in their top 10 greatest shows of all time. It's not in mine because I disagree with that choice. I just think it was a mistake. But, I'm not going to belabor it. So I would put this in top 10, but I think it deserves to be in top 10, if it makes any sense whatsoever. It's extremely well constructed. Yeah, the other thing I think really does hurt it is I don't know what the hell they were doing with Diane. I really don't understand. I'm glad it seems like she found happiness. That's fine. But I think really she feels more like her purpose, even though they gave her her own stories, which is so weird to say because, like, for instance, Meadow in Sopranos just felt like an extension of Tony Soprano at the end of the day. Like, they tried to give her her own storylines, but basically she was there to be a plot device for Tony, especially towards the end of the series. Like, something happens with her. It makes him go crazy and do something rash and all that stuff. So she feels like a plot device. Diane kind of feels like a plot device in a way. It's like the way they framed the series. We enter the series with her and we leave the series with her. It's kind of like she's our audience XP in a way. But I don't know, it just didn't feel like she had if you look at her character arc from beginning to end, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really know what's happening. Like I said, maybe it's just because I can't relate. And the Todd thing, I've already addressed all this stuff. I don't think anything's changed since I talked about this last time. But, never resonated with Todd. Just feels silly. So his character, for a lot of reasons, doesn't really work with me. Mr. Peanut Butter Static, even though we see potential for growth with him, he still kind of is the same, and that's fine. I enjoyed him. I didn't think he needed a character arc. He's perfect the way he was. But there's not really much to sink your teeth in there. Princess Caroline probably was. She might have the most interesting story arc of everybody, including Bojack. In that we can feel good about where she's going. She's got a complete life and she's making good choices, which good for her, right? Like, she overcame the shitty parents, by the way, in a way that Bojack is never able to. So that's a strength to her character. So going back to what I was saying too before about rewatchability, I do think that this show's more rewatchable than I was thinking in the moment. I was just pretty angry. So I think that's just something I probably will revisit in a couple years. It'd be interesting to go back and see some of the hints, and people said there were things that there's hinted at in season 1 that paid off way later. I'd love to go back and actually see what they were talking about in that particular case. And if you want to drop those in the comments, that'd be perfectly fine. Give me something to look for. But yeah, this is probably the best show I've ever seen for making me think about my own life. Sopranos was another show that was like that. Really, any show that can make you examine the choices you made, things you've done, things your parents have done. I spent a lot of this video talking about my dad, and it's fine for me to sit from my point of view and he's the greatest success story I've ever seen as far as sobriety goes. Because I never knew him. I've never seen all the times he failed. I'm sure I'd feel very differently if he had tried to stay sober and failed 20 times, if I'd seen all 20 of them. Like we saw with Bojack. So, but yeah, this is where I'll turn it over to you guys. What do you think? Where does this rank? Did this, you don't have to tell us specifics, obviously, but did this make you examine anything in your life? Do you think you could give him another chance? Could you watch Bojack Soberman and be emotionally invested in him, not in any of the other characters, in him. I'm curious about that.